Hey, deserving listeners, 90 Day Fiancé, the tell-all. Let's watch.
His girlfriend.
Since I've been back, things are a little, I don't talk to him as much. I don't know. Like, making plans is kind of hard right now.
We just started the relationship, so like, I think...
Here we go. It's always an excuse.
No, it's not excuse. No, listen, it's not excuse. Like, I don't think we have any problem.
All right, so Kim is subtly or not so subtly complaining that she wants to talk more often, but they don't talk as much. And Usman quickly says, well, we're in the beginning of a relationship. I think what Usman is saying is, we're not married, so we're earlier stage in that, and thus my preference is not to communicate as often. That's fine. They can have that difference and that preference, but I would hope that they could give each other benefit of the doubt and talk about it and take care of each other. Kim doesn't seem to be that upset about it, so maybe it's not a big deal to them, but it is kind of notable.
Would allow Usman to marry a second wife and have kids?
I don't really know, to be honest, I feel like if him and I were to get married, I am 51 years old. I don't want any more children. I can't have any more children.
All right, so this has been a question, and I'm glad that Sean asked this. In the very beginning, she said that she was okay with Usman marrying other people. And now she's being directly asked that, and she says, I don't know. So on one hand, I understand her current position. A lot of Americans who aren't polyamorous would say that because they're oriented monogamously and would not want their partner to be with other people. So there's nothing, but why would she have said earlier that she was okay with it? Was she lying to trick Usman into a relationship? I don't know. I don't think Kim would do that, but it's possible. Was she having wishful thinking, like, yeah, I'll be okay with that, and then later, oh, actually, no? Was it in the big, actually, this is something that we all can talk about for ourselves, is this isn't true for everyone, but when, say, you go on a date it's a second date, and it's very beginning of a relationship, and you can talk pretty freely about maybe even other people you're dating, and it doesn't provoke jealousy in each other. Fast forward 5 years, and you're much more dependent on each other, much more attached. And in those moments, the same story from your partner about someone they dated prior to you meeting them can actually make you very jealous. In the beginning, no jealousy. In the beginning, later jealousy. Not everyone's like this. For some people, it's opposite, actually. But I wonder if that's a factor in how Kim could change her mind. Is that in the beginning, it's like she's not viscerally attached to him because she hadn't met him in person, and so she could easily say, yeah, it's fine. I don't care if he marries other people. But then now that she's attached, her heart is more involved, and it's harder for her to be okay with that. Now, I hope the two of them can discuss this, because Usman has been, I think, fairly clear that that's his path in life, and that's even what his family was saying. So hopefully they can talk about that. And if that's a deal breaker for either one of them, then they should probably just end the relationship now, because that would be a hard thing to adjust. It'd be one thing to adjust to, like, well, I like cats. I don't like cats. Well, actually, that's a pretty big adjustment too. I am a morning person. I'm an evening person. You can but this sort of issue is hard to compromise around, right?
But I feel like I would be selfish if I did not let this man have children. It's this culture for him to have children to carry on his name. But like the marriage thing, we haven't talked about that yet. Whoa. We haven't even crossed that step. That's why it's crazy we're even talking about this part.
It's not crazy. You should be talking about this early and often, because you should know if it's prudent to pursue the relationship, particularly if you're Kim. Because if Usman's like, well, I'm going to marry someone else, so, just deal with it, then Kim should know for herself if this is a deal breaker, and she should know if he's flexible on that issue. So you should be talking about it 100%. But she said something interesting earlier. She's like, well, I can't have kids. I don't want to have kids. And I'd be selfish if I didn't allow him to have kids. Okay. But are you okay with him marrying someone else and potentially spending more time? Because in the beginning of the relationship, you might actually spend more time with and particularly if he has 5 wives, you're going to be one of 5. Is that okay? So I'm concerned about the level of reckoning with reality and how much they've talked about it, because of course this is a big issue.
I have to, because it's his culture, you know?
So, Kim, how would you feel about Usman being intimate with one other woman?
I don't know, like, how I feel about it. I can't really say until it happens.
Not a good sign. One, you can't predict how you would feel. Well, actually, that's interesting that she said it that way, because I could see her saying maybe a more elaborate answer from her, if she were to expand on that, and maybe she will, is she would say, well, although I never really thought about it before, because I've never been in a polyamorous relationship, I can kind of imagine it happening because I really want to be with Usman. And if he had another wife, another relationship, I don't think I'd be enthusiastic about it, but if he gave me enough attention and love, I think I could live with that. I think that would be fine. But I'm not sure, because I've never done that before, and I might completely flip out. I wonder if that's what she's referring to. I think that's best case scenario. Another possibility is she's just avoiding the topic because she doesn't want to face it. What do you think? Which one or another option? What do you think it is?
Is it going to be easy? No. Mm-hmm. And everybody's like, oh, you're crazy. Oh, you're crazy. Maybe, but I love him.
And I love you too, baby. I
can see why they had Usman back. He's quite a charismatic, enjoyable character on the show. And that outfit, that hat, just looks great. So, yeah. So it sounds like that's what, the prior hypothesis is what she's saying. She's like, I don't know. I cross that bridge when I get there. But, and so it sounds like she's had conversations with people saying, I think I might be okay with him marrying other people. I kind of feel like I might be able to adjust to that. But other people, and she says, other people are calling me crazy because of that. Because of course, it's, monogamy is the norm, and there's a shaming of polyamory in our society. And I'll just a little bit on that. Early in my career, in the beginning of this podcast, 14 years ago, I did an episode about polyamory. I had Alina Gabosh, who tragically passed away recently. She was in charge of the Sex Positive Culture Center in Seattle, a very famous organization for sex positivity, polyamory, BDSM, cuddling, sexual expression, and art, erotic art. There's an erotic arts festival in Seattle that she was in charge of, I believe. And she was an incredible figure. You could probably say, top 10 promoters of sex positivity, radical sex positivity in the world, in modern society. And I don't know how I met her. How did I even know her? I can't remember. How did I know her? Did she reach out to me? Anyway, she came on the podcast and we talked about polyamory and BDSM. And incidentally, there was a sex club in Seattle. I don't know if it's still there, but it was colloquially called the Wet Spot. But it was officially called the Center for Sex Positive Culture in Seattle. And you had to be a member to get in, or a +1 or something. And it was a very nondescript building. Like you'd think it was a warehouse, but it was a legal sex club. And she invited us to go there. And we actually did an episode about, I don't know if we didn't film inside, obviously, but we talked about it in the early podcast. But I don't know if that episode is still up. But anyway, so me and the co-hosts, Umberto and Lita, went to the sex club, and it was coincidentally, I think, even till today, the hottest day in Seattle on record. It was, 110 or something. And the club had no AC. And even though it was, midnight, it was still roasting hot, especially for us Seattleites. Like, I was recently in Orange County, Anaheim, Los Angeles, with people, my wife, as you've seen pictures on YouTube that I've been posting, and it got up to 75 degrees, and my body is acclimated to Seattle winter, which isn't horrible. It's not like Minnesota winter. It's, it's like 32 degrees at the lowest commonly, Fahrenheit, which is 0 degrees Celsius, I think. So my body was like, oh my God, 75 degrees. That's so hot. I was just, and I'm looking at the locals, and they're wearing like coats. And by the end of the summer, I'm more adjusted. Anyway, point is in Seattle, we're not used to 110 degrees. It's super hot. And everyone was quickly stripping in the club. All the customers were at a certain point completely naked. Everyone, or not everyone, but most everyone. Meanwhile, me and Umberto and Lita we're completely buttoned up with coats and sweaters on because we're so shy. We don't want to get naked. And so we're just dancing to Rammstein in our very hot outfits, sweating. And anyway, the point is that at that time, when I watched that interview, where I'm interviewing Alina Gabosh about polyamory specifically, and she's talking about ethical non-monogamy, the way I'm asking questions belies an attitude of a typical attitude and fear of polyamory. This notions of how can it work? I mean, what about jealousy? And isn't it just an excuse to cheat on your partner? These kinds of notions. I didn't ask those questions, but they were questions, I think, kind of in that direction. And upon meeting Alina Gabosh, she liked me, and she started to, and it was really hard for her to find poly-friendly therapists back then. Now you'll have a lot more therapists in Seattle in particular that not only are poly-friendly and kink-friendly, but have certifications in sexuality or sex therapy or even in poly issues. So, but back then in 2008, there weren't as many. And so she literally had a Rolodex, a physical Rolodex with my name in it. And she started referring poly couples to me. And it was then when I really learned about polyamory, is actually working with these couples and these polycules. So it might be the couple, but sometimes we'd bring in what they call a polycule, which is the others that are connected to this couple. It'd be like with Usman, it would be Usman, Kim, and his two other partners. In polyamory in Seattle, it's not just one, it's not genderized. Everyone of every gender in the relationship can obviously marry and be in relationships and have various levels of relationships with other people. You always talk about it beforehand. It's not just like a free-for-all. There's a lot of talk. And that's why a lot of poly people really take to therapy, because to be poly is to discuss things, to talk about things in detail prior to doing anything. So, like I had a couple polycule where one of the members of the polycule was going to Burning Man and wanted to get together with people randomly, because there's a lot of that happening at Burning Man. And so we talked for months prior to Burning Man what she wanted, what she thought she might end up doing, and what was okay with the rest of the polycule. Because you have to talk, there's emotional issues and there are STI issues, there's safety issues. And polyamorous people, in my experience, are some of the most safe, buttoned up people when it comes to STIs. Because of course, if one person gets an STI, it quickly goes through, unless you have a lot of measures in place to prevent infections from happening. Testing, protection, that kind of thing. So information, informing people, I think I might have something, let's shut me out of the polycule so I don't spread it around. There's a lot of talk like that. Of course, not every poly person is like this, but there's just so much education around how to be ethical as a non-monogamist that they raise all these issues. It brings it to the fore, and it can be incredibly mature, incredibly functional. Some of the best communicators I've ever seen in my office were polyamorous couples, and again, I learned a lot about the experience. I'm not poly myself. I'm monogamously oriented. I'm quite sure of that. So is my wife. My belief, and it seems to be, it's hard to know because it's all self-report, but that similar to being born on the spectrum between straight and gay and bisexual, there's various different configurations, meaning that some people who live a straight life have bisexual leanings, and vice versa. And some people are just 100% straight, some people are 100% gay, some people are 100% bisexual. So anyway, my point is that when you have someone like Kim who's starting to entertain the idea of polyamory, there's a lot of societal anti-poly notions that you have to sift through. And of course, when you come out, because she's essentially coming out, I don't know how she would exactly identify. Some people call this polygamy, but it's under the umbrella of polyamory, in my opinion. That she's basically coming out to her, support group as a poly-open individual, someone who is open to having her partner be with other people. I think she's restricted from being from other people. I'm just going to take a guess on that, according to Usman's culture and religion. I don't know, but it's fine. There's a lot of people who are like that. I worked with couples who were like that as well, where one person was absolutely poly and knew that about themselves and had been polyamorous for many. Some people don't like it when I say poly. I forget why, so I apologize. With the polyamorous people I know, that's how they identify. Maybe there's some offensiveness to that. I forget. Anyway, point is that with a lot of the polyamorous, with some of the polyamorous couples that I worked with, the polyamorous individual who knew they were polyamorous fell in love with someone who happened to be monogamous and identified that way. And we might enter into an exploration period where the polyamorous partner is trying to convince the monogamous person to at least allow them to be with other people and to invite them to be polyamorous themselves, so that they get to enjoy that freedom. And in the end, sometimes the monogamous person would discover that they were on the spectrum somewhere, that they were definitely monogamous, but they had some polyamorous leanings that they started to discover about themselves. For some people, they discovered or just decided they didn't want to do any polyamory themselves. And then we start to enter into this conversation around like, well, are you okay with your polyamorous partner actually being with other people? Because you can be polyamorous but actually live a monogamous lifestyle, because that's what you're going through. In fact, some polyamorous people will do that. Particularly if you're in a marriage, there can be times when one or both people say, let's retract from other people because I'm getting a little overwhelmed, or I'm not feeling very secure with you, or just various different reasons. Being polyamorous doesn't mean you're mandated to be in multiple relationships all the time. And certainly you can even be polyamorous and be in no relationship. Anyway, point is that for Kim, it sounds like she is entertaining that idea. She's getting pushback. And what I would hope is that she could get some information on the topic, because, similar to Hazel and Tariq, I was mildly frustrated listening to them, because they seemed to be, or they didn't seem to be, they were heading into what I would call a polyamorous life, and seemed to both be polyamorous, at least to some extent themselves, and yet didn't have any guidance or language or protocols, because there are protocols around, like with Tariq and Hazel, they started to both of them date this other woman. I can't remember her name. Was it Jenny or something? Anyway, they were involved with her. And what polyamorous people will do is before they engage with that person, they might be an invitation, but they say, okay, well, we got to talk about the ground rules here. And if they had known themselves, then Hazel would have said, look, I kind of want this person to myself. Or if you're involved with her, I can't have you really like her that much. I won't be able to handle it if I see a connection between the two of you. And especially I won't be able to handle it if she likes you more than she likes me. That is going to destroy me. I think that's what Hazel would have said. When you have guidance, when you read the books, when you have mentors, when you have the experience, when you go to a therapist that understands these things, then you can actually set up polyamory in a way that is more likely to work. I will say that jealousy does happen because humans can sometimes often be jealous. Not every polyamorous person is prone to jealousy in all situations, but that needs to be discussed as well. How do you talk about that? And some polyamorous people will feel ashamed that they're jealous. And I'm like, no, you're a human being. Something's happening that is worrying you and hurting your feelings. Let's talk about. Anyway, so I'd hope that for Kim, she has some of that guidance around that, because it's a pretty complicated thing, and that she fully comprehends. And maybe she's even watched this video. I've become accustomed to acknowledging the fact that a lot of the cast members do watch my videos about them. I've had enough cast members reach out to me directly to know that, a fair amount. So anyway, Kim, if you're watching this, all that I said is, tip of the iceberg in terms of what people will do regarding educate, or if y'all are out there in a similar position. Another common situation is you're in a monogamous relationship, you've been married for 5 years, and one person, it's usually in this scenario, it's one person, is starting to seriously want to be with other people sexually, maybe romantically, but they don't want to leave. They know they don't want to leave their marriage or their relationship, but they know they definitely want to be with other people, and it's really getting to them. It's an itch that can only be scratched in a certain way, and it's starting to really bring them down. The fact that they're in that, and if they're in a typical society, they will blame themselves, there's something wrong with me, or they'll tell themselves they're not in love with their partner. Polyamorous people can deeply, deeply, deeply love their partner and still also love other people and be with other people. That's polyamory. It's many loves. And clearly some humans have that capacity. Some don't, like me. I'm capable of loving many people, but I'm not comfortable or want to romantically and sexually love more than one person, more than my wife. So I would hope that, in that scenario, while I'm on the topic, if you're like that, I said I was only talking about this for a little bit, and I've said all this stuff before, so I'm sorry for repeating myself, but some of you out there are probably in this position where you're in a long-term relationship, you love your partner, you don't want to leave, but you're having all these thoughts and urges. There's a lot of different reasons that might be happening. You could be polyamorous. It could also just be common fantasy. There's nothing unusual about thinking about other people, and novelty of sexual partners is seemingly a clear, evolved drive that we have. And we will sublimate by fantasizing instead of actually being with those people. Or role play. Sometimes, that's why people will do that. Like, I want to act like we don't know each other, because we have, all of us, or many of us, have a kink drive of wanting to be with someone who is not being with someone new. Anyway. So if you have those thoughts, it's worth exploring. And you can start to consider, are you polyamorous? Is that your optimal life? Now, that can take a long time to discover about yourself, to figure out, especially without experimenting with that lifestyle. But sometimes you can just sort of imagine it. That doesn't mean you have to be polyamorous, though. Many people in that scenario will decide, well, because they float it, extensively with their partner. Their partner's like, no, that's a deal breaker. If you want to be with other people, you have to leave me. And the poly-leaning person says, I don't want to lose my partner, so I guess I'm going to have to forego that. And that's possible. You can do that. That's why we need to educate people about polyamory early so that they can identify such that they can actually purposely meet people who are also polyamorous. There's a lot of people that don't even know about polyamory or don't notice their urges until they're already in a relationship, and they, by the luck of the draw, might not have been with a polyamorous person. Anyway, so there's a lot of exploration there. There's a lot of options there, and it needs to be done wisely with preemptive exploration. What a lot of people end up doing is they deny, shame. It sneaks out, they cheat. It's a well-known thing, especially in the polyamorous community, that when you force polyamorous people into a monogamous life and you don't provide any support or any exploration or any validation, at least of their urges, people, life finds a way, to quote, what's his face on Jurassic Park, Jeff Goldblum. Life will find a way. Sex finds a way. Not always, but often. And if you are polyamorously leaning and you're not allowed to explore that and to figure out a configuration that's going to work for you, and you're shaming, you get drunk, boom. Now it's not boom. It's several decisions that lead down that road. But so anyway, I hope that Kim, if you're watching, there's a book called The Ethical Slut. There is a lot of other books along those lines. There's obviously a lot of videos, hopefully, on YouTube, I'm guessing. A lot of mentorship that you can participate in. I have episodes on polyamory that you can listen to. And it needs to be explored, talked about, decided upon. Otherwise, you're heading potentially for a brick wall because you don't know what you're getting into. You don't know what you want. You don't know what you can handle. Just as an example with Usman, for Kim, if she's like, okay, I'm going to give this a try, it would be prudent if Kim said, Usman, I need to feel secure in our relationship. So if you're going to be with other people, I need to feel like I'm special in some way. I don't want to feel like just another wife. I want to feel like I'm special to you. So let's talk about how you can do that. Or, okay, you're starting to date other people. What does this mean? Does this mean you're going to spend, how much time are you going to spend? And these are conversations that polyamorous people have. How much time? Because that all has to be negotiated. And sometimes it just kind of works out. But, sometimes the situation is like Kim will be like, I need to be with you 4 days out of 7. Anything less than that, I'm pretty sure that's going to really challenge my love for you and frustrate me. And then, you have to have those conversations, because if you just sort of head into it, Usman could fall in love. That woman could say, I want you 7 days a week. And Usman's like, okay. And then Kim is left in the dust, and you hadn't talked about it. You hadn't agreed to anything. Because, for example, she could say, I want you 4 days out of the week. I'm pretty sure I'm going to need that. And you could say, oh, no, that's not going to work, because the next 3 women that I marry, it's customary for 6 months for me to actually move into their place. And I don't know what the custom is, and so I probably won't see you at all during that time. And then that informs. And then Kim would say, wow, that does not sound sustainable. Count me out. Talk, communicate, know yourself. All right, well, that does it for that episode. Everyone out there, please take care of yourself and take care of others, because we all deserve it. We really, really do.